What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and we spent all offseason talking through what I believe are the best draft strategies for 2022 fantasy football. We've talked about avoiding the dead zone, winning the flex, Zero RB, Hero RB, everything you need to know from a macro level. But this week, I want to prepare you guys for your drafts that much more. I know all you guys have your drafts either this weekend, next weekend, whenever, and I want to prepare you guys on a micro level. So we're going to go over this week my strategy for early, middle, and late round pick slots. Today we're going to talk through picks 1 through 4, break down my strategy, what players I'm targeting, stuff that's on my mind, and then we're going to walk through picks 101 through 104 in 4 individual mocks at the end of the video. So hold tight. We're not going to waste any more time. If you enjoyed this video at any point, make sure you get down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm pretty cool. My nitty babe.
So before we really dive in, let's talk about league setup here so we're all on the same page. For the sake of this video, we're going to be dealing with a full PPR league, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and 2 flex. Now, I ran a poll. It seems like people are moving away from the 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format, and you're either running 2 wide receivers, 2 flexes, or 3 wide receiver, 1 flex. In those formats where it's either 2 wide receiver and 2 flex or 3 wide receiver and 1 flex, not a ton changes for me. I'm still trying to put wide receivers through the flex plus 2, as you guys know. And when we talk about general draft strategy, I get a lot of questions where somebody says, hey man, I got pick 3 in a 10-team league. What are we thinking? RB, wide receiver RB, Zero RB, and I cannot stress this enough. You guys have been amazing. I appreciate all of the love. The positive comments have been amazing, but please do not approach your draft like this. You do not want to go into the draft with this rigid mindset where, okay, at the 3rd overall pick, I'm going to take Justin Jefferson regardless, and on the way back, I am taking a running back. Well, what happens when the 103 is on the board, somebody reached for a Cooper Kupp at 102, and you're staring down Christian McCaffrey at that 103 spot? You don't take Justin Jefferson just to lock yourself into what you said you were going to do. You take the falling value. So I never really assign draft strategies, positions. The whole idea of covering strategy as in-depth as I do is so that you can sort of get a broad feel for things that you can audible to. So you can remain flexible for as long as possible in a draft and then adapt whatever you're doing into one of my strategies and sort of go from there, right? It gives you maximum flexibility because you know that structurally you'll be able to make up for things as the draft goes on. Now, we're not going to spend too much time on general strategy because I have a ton of videos going over that. I'll try and link the full playlist. I have a playlist now of all my draft strategy videos. I'll try and link either the playlist or one of my favorite videos, but overall, we pretty much guide our drafts down a path of either Hero RB, double Hero RB, Zero RB, and what all of those draft strategies have in common is that we want to be avoiding the running back dead zone in rounds 3 through 6 while stocking up on enough wide receivers to dominate our flex. So a rule of thumb I like to have is to come out of the first 10 rounds with enough wide receivers to fill your flex, an extra wide receiver for injuries, and an extra wide receiver for buys. So in a 2 wide receiver, 2 flex league, that is 2 wide receivers, 2 flex, 2 for buys and injuries. So that is 6 wide receivers through round 10. And here's a good chart that goes over that where if you have 2 wide receiver, 1 flex spot, so that's 3 total, you want plus 2, so you want 5 through 10 rounds. With 4 wide receiver and flex spots, you want 6, so on and so forth. So now let's zoom in on a micro level here. And we talk about round 1 from picks 1 through 4's point of view. You hit the lottery. Picks 1 through 4 is my dream setup in this season, this off season. I want the top 4 of McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp. I see a tier break after that. Now, I do love Jamar Chase, but I would have him like in his own tier where it's a stopgap from the mid to late round guys and from the top 4. Jamar Chase is in his own tier. He's still really strong. He is my 105, but I do think there's a small fall off from Jefferson and Kupp to Jamar Chase. Now, for the sake of this video, we're going to be using the draft board from last week's ADP on NFFC, which as you guys have seen on the live streams I do, it's a high stakes format, $350 leagues on the NFFC. I believe it's the National Fantasy Football Championship. It's a high stakes league. There's real money on the line. It gives you a good feel of sort of what a draft board might look like in sharper home leagues. And this allows us to kind of visualize what I'm thinking when I'm on the clock. And of course, the top 4 are squared or boxed off. If you have a top 4 pick, you're looking at Jonathan Taylor, McCaffrey, Jefferson, Kupp, and the 2 running backs up top, I believe, have the best odds at a legendary running back season where I've doubted JT a little bit. He's still my 102, but I do believe as much as his ceiling wasn't crazy last year, it was only year 2. He can improve upon that. And then CMC is CMC. And then Jefferson and Kupp, I think, are 2 guys who are locked in for 20 point per game type production at wide receiver, which is irreplaceable. So the first 4 picks is the easy part. It's when we get to that round 2-3 turn where we really have to be on our toes, because this is where it gets tricky. I think there's a really big fall off from the middle of the second round to the end of the second round. Now here, I boxed our draft slots, so picks 1 through 4, and I made little brackets to show the players who could fall to our draft slot along with the last of the players I'd be considering in this area. So I think pretty much guys you'll see in this area are like Aaron Jones, Javonte Williams, maybe Kamara, and then the last of the guys I'm considering at this 2-3 turn pick are Mark Andrews, T. Higgins, Travis Etienne. Now, make a note, it's third round reversal, so this isn't going to be perfect. So just imagine that like the Andrews, T. Higgins, Etienne, AJ Brown side were just flipped on the other side. Just imagine that it wasn't third round reversal. Again, I think this is some of the most accurate ADP to mimic what your home leagues look like. Now, I have Travis Kelce, Deebo Samuel, Javonte Williams, and Aaron Jones all circled. I would also put Kamara in there as well, but these are guys that I'm praying fall back to us at our, what would that be, the 19th overall pick, where it's 12 plus 20, it's 24 minus 4, so it's like the 20th overall pick. So that's like the 4 coming back around, so I believe that would be the 209. I have those 4 players all in a clear tier ahead. You're pretty much hoping you get lucky enough that they come back to you. Personally, I see a big difference between Javonte, Kamara, Aaron Jones, and like a Leonard Fournette. I have a really big tier gap between them. And then the same thing with the Deebo Samuel and CeeDee Lamb versus a Tyreek Hill, Michael Pittman, Mike Evans. None of those guys, Tyreek Hill, Pittman, Evans, feel good if I'm drafting them at like the 210, just from what I've done personally. So in a world where none of those 4 to 5 guys that I have circled here fall back to us, it gets really tricky. And something I've been trying to be aware of is the false sense of floor we get from second round wide receivers. You guys know I love taking wide receivers. I love taking wide receivers in the second round, but it is something we want to be wary of. Where if we look at Pat Crane's article from last year, again, amazing article, talks about legendary running back upside, but he also talks about the floor and the ceiling of running back versus wide receiver. And if we look here, second round wide receivers aren't really providing us with a higher floor than running backs in this range, where if we look at their bust rate, they're about the same between running back and wide receiver, where the whole point of taking wide receiver is for the high floor. They give you a high floor in round 1. They give you it in round 3. But in round 2, you're almost better taking a running back in this range or being really, really considerate of what wide receivers you're targeting in the second round. I don't want to overreact to what happened in 2021, but if we think back to then, round 2 wide receivers were landmines. We had Calvin Ridley, bust. DeAndre Hopkins wasn't great. AJ Brown wasn't great. I know that was an injury thing. DK Metcalf wasn't great. I know that was a Russell Wilson thing, but there's things that's out of their control. But at the end of the day, 4 of the 5 busted. The only real winner from the second round was Justin Jefferson. But it's something I want to be hyper aware of when I'm talking about these second round wide receivers versus second round running backs, where running backs obviously give us a higher ceiling than the wide receivers. And if wide receivers aren't providing us a higher floor than the running backs in this range, then we need to be very particular about what wide receivers we're taking here and who we're taking them over. So in a vacuum, my guys here are AJ Brown, T. Higgins, Mark Andrews. And I even in a vacuum have them over a Fournette, a Tyreek Hill, a Mike Evans, but you have to play the ADP game a little bit, especially because Mark Andrews, T. Higgins, AJ Brown will routinely fall to the 3rd round. And it's why I have Leonard Fournette as my 19th ranked player. As much as I don't even love Leonard Fournette's archetype, he is the last round 2 running back that can still give us some type of upside. I don't think it's going to be legendary upside, but if you're drafting at like the 209, 210, 211, you don't necessarily need 25 points per game. 21 might do it. 20 even might even do it late second round. But I think he's the last guy with a profile of a second round running back. And I think it's probably a mistake to take 3rd round wide receivers or second round wide receivers over a Fournette, outside of Deebo and CeeDee, 2 wide receivers that I am firm on, have good profiles in that second round, whereas I think that Evans, Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, and T. Higgins, as much as I love those guys, we can get them in the 3rd. Evans and Tyreek Hill feel sort of forced into that late second. So it's just something to be aware of, where I'm not saying that wide receivers in the second round are a trap, but I do really feel confident about the top 3. I like Devontae and Diggs as first-round wide receivers. Then you get to the second round. Deebo and CeeDee are really the only wide receivers I like taking in the second round. So that's how I view the first 3 rounds from this draft spot of picks 1 through 4. So let's get into some mock drafts. All right, this is going to be PPR, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receiver, a tight end, 2 flex, and full PPR from the 1 spot. Now at the 101, my 101 personally is CMC. If you prefer Jonathan Taylor, knock yourself out. I say this in every strategy video. This is not a player take video. If you have a player that you prefer over the player that I took in the same tier, have at it. Now, we get to the 2-3 turn, and like we said, Fournette is a sneaky target of mine at the 2-3 turn. He's gone. All of the guys we're hoping fall to us, whether that's Javonte, Kamara, Deebo Samuel, all of those are gone. So when that happens, okay, then we take wide receiver. I will double up on A.J. Brown and T. Higgins every time in this situation. Would love to get Mark Andrews in here, but got sniped. Now, we get to the 4-5 turn, and I don't even really like Mike Williams this year, but he's a mid to late third guy in most places. If he gets to me at the 4-5 turn, I'll take him there all day. Then we go Kittle. I have Judy ahead of him in a vacuum, but this was a common theme when I was drafting these teams today, where even if I have a guy like Judy ahead of Kittle, or even if I have like a Juju or a Marquise Brown or a McLaurin, once we get to this spot where I'm running some kind of Hero RB, Zero RB build, and all the elite tight ends are gone, right? So Waller went, Pitts went, Kelsey went, Andrews went, and you're staring down Kittle. If he's the last elite tight end, or it's a spot where you don't think you'll have to get one back coming back to you, I really do think it is important where if you go double Hero RB, I don't think an elite tight end is that important. But let's say you go Hero RB or Zero RB, an elite tight end is pretty important. Now, I'm not saying you go out there, reach on tight ends, anything like that, but 5th round Kittle or Waller I think are perfect cornerstones of a Zero RB, Hero RB type team. So at this point, this is a Hero RB team where we have McCaffrey, we have 3 stud wide receivers, we have a elite tight end, and we get here at the 6-7 turn. Elijah Moore is a screaming value. I have him as a mid-5th, so if he gets to me in the late 6th, fine. Now, here it was really close between Jalen Hurts, Drake London, and Devonta Smith. Now, we're already pretty good at wide receiver. We have 4. You guys know I like to have 10, or I like to have 6 by round 10 in a format like this. But we go Hurts because there's a big tier break at quarterback, and it paid off because we go Hurts, and Trey Lance goes, Brady goes, Burrow goes. We're left with literally nothing on the board by the time this pick comes back to us. And we're sitting here at the 8-9 turn, and it's a tough spot here where we only have wide receivers through our flex. We don't have one for buys or one for injuries. We would like to have 2 wide receivers and 1 running back selected in these next 3 picks. We have Kadarius Toney fall to us here. We take him instantly at the 8-12. Then we go Ramondre Stevenson as our RB2 in this Hero RB build. Then we're at the 10-11 turn, and I don't like any of the value here on wide receiver. I'm not going to reach on a Rondale Moore in the 10th round. So I think it's good for you guys to see what happens when I don't end up filling my wide receivers through the flex +2 by round 10. Sometimes you can't make that happen. I know we showed the chart earlier. I don't know why I said chart, but the chart earlier where I showed you guys if you have 4 wide receiver and flex spots, you want 6 wide receivers through round 10. Sometimes that just can't happen. I think this is a good visual of what I do when that happens. So we go best player available. We go Gainwell. We go Rashad White. We go Zamir White. We get some really nice Hero RB type profiles for that RB2 spot. And then we make up for the lack of wide receiver late by going Rondale Moore and KJ Hamler to close things out. Now, I would give this team probably like a B+ to A-. Didn't get as much wide receiver firepower as I would have liked. But I think the team, when we look at the starting lineup, the only weak spot is RB2, which is what we want in a Hero RB build. We have Hurts, which is elite, McCaffrey, which is elite, Ramondre Stevenson and RB2, which is a really fun RB2, A.J. Brown at wide receiver 1, T. Higgins at wide receiver 2, Kittle, Mike Williams, Elijah Moore. That is across the board sexy. Kadarius Toney mixing in as our wide receiver flex, Gainwell, Rashad White, Zamir White, all guys that we can get in there in our RB2 spot. We can even drop a guy like Zamir White if things don't work out. Same with Rondale Moore and KJ Hamler, but those are 2 guys where you at least get some kind of firepower to make up for that 6 wide receiver not happening. So this next one's out of the 102 spot, but I wanted to switch it up. So I didn't just do an identical Hero RB build in the same exact format. So this is going to be half PPR. Instead of 2 wide receiver, 2 flexes, it's going to be 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. So instead of aiming for 6 wide receivers through round 10, we're aiming for 5. So at the 102 spot, we go Jonathan Taylor. Again, take your choice of the top 2 running backs. And at the 102 spot, you're pretty much just going to get handed whichever one comes to you. Now, the 2-3 turn is where it gets interesting, where, again, I have A.J. Brown and T. Higgins ahead of Fournette in a vacuum, but you have to play the ADP game a little bit. And in a half PPR, I don't mind getting exposure to a Fournette who is a round 2 running back. So we go Fournette, we come back around in round 3, and we go T. Higgins. We're set. Good to go. We are staring down the barrel of a double Hero RB build. Now, we come back around at the 4-11, and I do have Judy over Sutton, but at the 4-11, Sutton never makes it here. Sutton is always a late round 3 guy in most places. So why not take some Cortland Sutton here? And then we come back around and we take Waller. Now, it's important to note, I do have guys like Judy, like we said in the last one. I have those guys ahead of a guy like Waller or Kittle. But once we are looking at the last elite tight end, I want that positional advantage. I know this is double Hero RB, so I didn't really have to do it, but I felt confident enough to make up for wide receivers later, especially in a half PPR where I already saw wide receivers were getting pushed down, especially in this draft where we saw Jefferson, Kupp, and Chase go 109, 110, 111. If you are in a home league where that might happen, even in a half PPR, you need to be smashing Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, and Jamar Chase. Now, we come back around at the 6-7 turn, and this is pretty easily Rashad Bateman. He is a guy in like high stakes professional leagues. He's going in like the 4th round, late 4th round, so very easy. Same with Juju in the 7th round. I know there's a knee injury thing going on with him, but I'll take a 2-round discount on that. So now we have wide receivers through the flex and 1 extra with Juju here. So we really only need 1 more meaningful wide receiver. We go Trey Lance in the 8th round here. Fine value. We'll take that. It's a smaller starting lineup as well. It's something else to be aware of. When you just have 1 flex, it makes the starting lineup smaller, which means that you want elite onesies that much more. So we go Lance there. And then 9th round, DeAndre Hopkins felt crazy. I wonder if half PPR really pushed a lot of these wide receivers down. I think that was the case. Hopkins, for me, I don't even love him, but he's a 6-round guy in ADP. And especially in this format where we have wide receivers through the flex and then Juju ahead of Hopkins, we can afford to have Hopkins on our bench for the first 6 weeks and be just fine. Then we come back around to around 10, 11, and at this point we can do whatever we want. Running back 1 and running back 2 are studs. We have elite onesies. We have wide receiver through the flex plus 2. We go Gainwell as a fun RB3, and then I just take best player available in Garrett Wilson, who I have as a 9th round wide receiver. If you're going to give me 11th round Garrett Wilson, even though I have a ton of wide receiver firepower on this team, I'm just going to go Garrett Wilson here. Because I do think taking the 2 running backs up top means that we really don't need to hammer these late round running back dart throws like we would in a Hero RB or a Zero RB build. And then we come back around in the 12th, 13th round, and we go Boyd, who again is like Garrett Wilson, where he's like a 9th, 10th rounder to me. And maybe at this point, wide receiver is getting really redundant on this team, but I think you'll be able to, at the very least, you'll stock up on wide receivers. You can't really replicate off waivers the same way you can with running backs. So if it's too much, you go out there, you bundle, let's say Boyd and Juju, and you go out there, upgrade your wide receiver position or something. I think at a certain point, you just have to draft the good players. Tyler Boyd in round 12, 11 to me is insane. And then we get Zamir White. And this is a sweet setup in this format in a half PPR. I would give this team an A to an A+. If you're out there in a home league running a half PPR league, this is the ideal setup. Lance, Taylor, Fournette, T. Higgins, Cortland Sutton, Darren Waller, Rashad Bateman as my starters. Juju and Hopkins rotating in the flex. Gainwell and Zamir White as my backup running backs, where Zamir White especially will be a guy that I'll just churn that roster spot, try and find the next Elijah Mitchell, Cordarrelle Patterson. Tyler Boyd and Garrett Wilson are nice depth wide receivers. Maybe one of them pops, and you can trade them away later. So our next spot is out of the 3 spot, and this is back to the original format where it's going to be full PPR, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 2 flex spots. At the 103, we go Jefferson. Once JT and CMC are off the board, that's an easy button to push for me. If you prefer Kupp, go ahead. Then we're at the 2-3 turn, and one of the guys that we had circled early on, Javonte Williams, he falls in our laps. Boom. Easy pick in the 2nd round, and Javonte is going to be our Hero RB in this build. Then we get A.J. Brown on the way back. We get to the 4-5 turn. Waddle at any point in the 4th round is an absolute treat to have on the team. We take him there every time. Then we're coming around to the 5th round. We're staring down Waller. We're staring down Allen Robinson, Michael Thomas, Hollywood, Judy. Again, we opt for the elite tight end. Structurally, it just makes more sense. We're already drafting 3 wide receivers here. It just makes sense for this build. And then we get around to the 6-7 turn. Elijah Moore, again, gift in the 6th round. And I will be honest with you guys, I have thought, like, man, these ADPs aren't great. So I was looking at Sleeper. Sleeper's ADPs are even more broken. I tried to do mock drafts on there. Even more awful. You can get like 8th, 9th round Gabriel Davis, Rashad Bateman. We've already made videos this offseason of how to exploit ADPs, but they're all bad if I'm being honest with you. Then we get to, after Elijah Moore, we have a tough decision to make where we have wide receivers through the flex. We would like 2 more over these next 4 rounds. And we have a really tough decision between Jalen Hurts and Ayuk, who Ayuk goes like the mid to early 6th these days. So a 7th round Ayuk would be nice, but we go Hurts here. And it pays off because we see Burrow go off the board, Lance go off the board, Brady goes off the board. So we lock in our elite quarterback here before it's too late. And then we're looking at the 8-9 turn. We get a falling Kadarius Toney. I'll take Kadarius Toney anywhere in the 8th round. And then we grab Ramondre Stevenson, who's also a steal in the 9th round, on the way back. So at this point, we need one more wide receiver. We have our RB2. Our onesies are locked in place. All we really need is a bunch of RB2 archetypes, and then we need one more wide receiver. So at the 10-11 turn, we snag George Pickens, who I think is a fine pick anywhere in the double-digit rounds at this point. I think in home leagues, you'll be able to get a pretty crazy price on Pickens, whether that's 10th, 11th, 12th rounds. High-stakes leagues. We did a high-stakes draft last night, or that's going to be 2 nights ago by the time that you guys see this video, but Pickens went, I want to say like the 7-12 in that draft. So absolutely insane, the kind of prices that Pickens is going for. But 10th round Pickens is absolutely fine. And then we finished the draft with Henderson, Spiller, Zamir White, Dearness Johnson. All really fun late round RB archetypes. Whoever you guys like between the guys who are available in this range, have at it. Just make sure you really mix them up where, you know, Spiller is kind of this like rookie ambiguous guy. I know Zamir White's the same way, but Henderson's a not a pure handcuff, but is kind of competing with Akers. They're all a little bit different. Dearness Johnson, same thing, where he might get traded. You have some things up in the air there. You want them to all be a little bit different, where they're not all just pure handcuffs. You want some ambiguity, some uncertainty baked in there. I think that's what we did with this team. For a Hero RB team in a full PPR league, I would give this team probably an A to A-, where Hurts and Waller are great at the onesies. Javonte at RB1. We have Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, Elijah Moore through the flex. That's really good. I might even give this an A+. Then we also have Kadarius Toney and George Pickens as our rotational wide receivers. Henderson, Spiller, Zamir White, Dearness Johnson to mix in with Ramondre Stevenson in that RB2 spot. When we're making a Hero RB build, this is what it should look like. Now, this is the last mock we're going to go over today. Please let me know if 4 mock drafts is too redundant, it's too much of the same information. I really do want to make sure that I'm covering different formats, different builds, and making sure I'm covering every single pick, because, you know, if I only cover picks 1, 2, and 4 in this video and I skipped out on 3, what about you guys that are picking from the 3rd spot? So let me know. I think this is probably a fine format, but I just wanted to get it out there and see what you guys thought to make sure that these videos are as catered to you guys as possible. Now, when we look at the 104, this is, again, a full PPR, 2 wide receiver, 2 flex setup. We're at the 104. Our top 3 are gone. We go Cup. Simple. Then we come back around at the 2-3 turn, and this is where that 4 spot where you can still lock in one of these top 4 guys and then get somebody to fall to 209 is a really, really sweet setup. So here we go Debo, where Debo is one of those guys that I had circled between Debo, Javonte, Kamara. I believe Aaron Jones is in there as well, as guys that you're really hoping fall back to you. We get Debo. We're looking really good. I'll take him over the Mark Andrews and the Fournettes of the world. And then we come back around on the other side and we go T. Higgins. We took A.J. Brown earlier. We'll take T. Higgins to sort of switch things up. Then we come back around to the 4-5 turn, and this looks like a true Zero RB build where we've gone 3 straight wide receivers. I knew this probably should be a wide receiver just to make sure we're stacking up enough wide receiver firepower to justify the build. And I will say there's a bunch of guys I was looking at here between like McLaurin and even guys like Marquise Brown, Rashad Bateman, Metcalf, Judy, all these guys in like the same tier. I don't take McLaurin a ton, so I figured why not go with him there. And then for the Zero RB build, we lock in an elite tight end with Kittle. So now we have a true Zero RB build where it is 4 wide receivers and an elite tight end through 5 rounds. We want to make sure that we have 6 wide receivers through round 10. We already have 4. We only need 2 more. So that means we have about 2 detours to make before round 10, or 2 to 3 detours to make before round 10. And it's also worth noting, these builds, it's not that I love Kittle and Waller. It's really just that Kelsey and Andrews and all these guys get pushed up in Fantasy Pros. I don't know why. Same thing happens on Sleeper as well. But I think any of the top 5 elite tight ends are great for Hero RB and Zero RB just for structural reasons. So then we're at the 6-7 turn. Juju falls to us again. So we go Juju again. The knee stuff is concerning, but I'll take the round discount on him at this point. And then we come back around and we catch a falling Dobbins in round 7 as the perfect RB1 in a Zero RB build. If you can get Dobbins to fall outside of the first 5 rounds in a Zero RB build, I do think that Dobbins or even a A.J. Dillon or a Cam Akers is the perfect guy to sort of break the seal, grab a running back in a Zero RB build. We come back around 8-9 turn. I wanted to hammer more running backs, but Devonta Smith is an absolute value in the 7th round, so couldn't turn him down in the 8th. And then we went Ramondre Stevenson on the way back. And we luck into a Trey Lance in round 10. So now we have a San Francisco stack where we have Kittle, we have Debo, we have Trey Lance. Boom. We have elite onesies in Trey Lance and Kittle. We have wide receivers through the flex +2. And now we can just hammer running backs all the way through. Kenneth Gainwell, Darrell Williams, Isaiah Pacheco, who went in the 9th round in the high stakes draft we did last night. And then we go Chris Evans. This is for a Zero RB team. Now, again, I say this all the time. My ideal structure is Hero RB, and then double Hero RB, and then Zero RB is kind of like my change-up, curveball, something out of nowhere that I'll use sometimes. If you're forced to make a Zero RB team, I don't think it gets much better than this. I would give this team an A+ for a pure Zero RB team, where we have elite onesies in Trey Lance and Kittle. We have Kupp, Debo, T. Higgins, Terry McLaurin, Juju, and Devonta Smith off the bench. And then our running backs are still pretty decent, where we have Dobbins, Ramondre Stevenson, Kenneth Gainwell, Darrell Williams, Isaiah Pacheco, Chris Evans. It's a really, really sweet setup for a Zero RB build. Now, that is going to do it for us today, fellas. We covered picks 1 through 4, and I think I went as in-depth as possible. Now, if you guys want to go out there and dominate your home leagues, dominate your drafts this offseason, make sure you check out patreon.com/Ron Stewart. It'll be down below in the description. It'll be down below in the comments, pinned at the top. And on there, you will have my top 200 PPR rankings, half PPR rankings for redraft managed leagues, where I'm old school myself. I draft off of these rankings. I would make these rankings even if I didn't do this and make these videos. So if you want to go out there and draft off the exact cheat sheet that I'm using in these drafts, make sure you check out patreon.com/Ron Stewart if you want access to that. There's also some really cool stuff that will help you in season, where I have in-season weekly waiver wire guidance articles. I have in-season weekly rankings. I have in-season weekly rest of season rankings. I have dynasty stuff on there, my prospect model stuff on there, exclusive stuff in the Discord, dynasty buys and sells. There's a million things on the Patreon. So if you want to get better at fantasy, make sure you go down below. Check out patreon.com/Ron Stewart. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you go down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let me know if you have any questions surrounding your draft slot, pick 1 through 4, and I will see you guys in the next one.
I got the juice, I got the juice.
Channel, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home. Even my haters kinda glad I'm on. Rest in peace to my vagabond. Rapper, song, singer, suspended, subpoena from Mr. Me.